Hi. You might be talking with someone and all of a sudden they start acting like they're 13 years old, or 2 years old, or 7 years old. It's a thing. And it's because they had some sort of trauma at that age and they regress to that age when anything threatens them that is similar to that trauma. Hi, I'm Fran Gallagher. I'm your guide to relationships, meditation, and intuition. So, we in the Western world talk about trauma, we talk about post traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD. But from a more Eastern spiritual view, we can say that this all relates to soul loss. So if there is soul loss at age 13, the person will literally act like they're 13 around a particular concept or challenge or issue. It's a thing, unfortunately, and you will see the person change right before your eyes. So instead of just thinking of it as a pejorative term, man, they act like they're 13, imagine that it's real and that you are looking at the results of trauma. You actually may regress around certain subjects also, and we can start to get very aware of this and begin to notice for ourselves if there are any memories, or open the discussion with another person if they have any memories around anything that could have created trauma at that time. So here's one of the problems though. We didn't know any better when we were kids. If we were raised with certain parameters, we thought they were normal. It took me many years to sort out my childhood and really categorize certain aspects of what I experienced as abuse and neglect. So as I did that, I was able to sort of reparent myself in these moments so that I could learn what was actually normal and healthy and appropriate and what was not. Of course, times have changed, and what was appropriate when I was a kid may not be appropriate now, but abuse is still abuse and neglect is still neglect. But back to when someone regresses right before your eyes, I really want you to take it seriously. It's not just something that is annoying. It's something that is real. And if you consistently are dealing with someone who is 13 in a situation where you didn't marry a 13-year-old, you didn't agree to be in a relationship with a 13-year-old, you didn't hire a 13-year-old, and you didn't know you were going to work for a 13-year-old, it's really important to notice and decide how you want to move forward. You have the option of moving forward in your life with actual grown-ups. And all of us have these problems. So if the person in your life who is regressing will talk about it, will maybe agree to counseling or working with a teacher or coach or a therapist, then you have a workable situation. But if over time they will not work with someone, then your situation becomes more and more unworkable, and you have a choice in the matter. So if you have any psychological training or you've done any reading, you're going to become fascinated by what you see when someone regresses. So if someone regresses and becomes really stubborn, then you know that it is likely either something that happened in the age 2 to 4 range, or in the early teens where they were exercising their will. I'm not an expert on this, so you may know more about this than I do, and you may want to consult with an expert, a therapist, or a coach or teacher. I just find it really fascinating to begin to understand the roots of my behavior and the roots of the behaviors of those around me. One of the areas that I find fascinating is if someone has the gift of physical strength, and yet, and this is an example of trauma, if they're asked to move a chair, they act as if you've really asked them to do something terrible. They're not aware of their own strength, in other words. If you know of someone who has a particular gift, but they are reluctant to share it, it might be similar, where at the age where they were getting used to this gift, they might have had some damage to their ability to feel like the gift was theirs and they had autonomy regarding the gift. Let's say you know someone who has a beautiful voice, but they're reluctant to sing for various occasions, and you want them to sing for various occasions, but again, they are reluctant. It could be that they have never fully owned that gift. They don't feel they have autonomy, so they often will feel coerced, even if you ask them directly to share their gift. So I just think that we need to really own our end of the situation. Again, if the person starts to behave differently and they regress right before your eyes, it's not you. You might be observing correctly, and you might be accurately assessing an area of their development. And the same with us. If we start feeling suddenly like we're being childish, we have some jealousy, we feel like we're going to pitch a fit, then it could be that we've regressed around that one thing. As I work with myself about my own trauma and the areas of my life where I am growing myself up, I find it fascinating, an area that just feels like I stepped off a curb when I thought I was on flat land. All of a sudden, I drop down into a darker place, a place where I have less energy, I feel less available to myself. And then I have to stop and notice that and wonder where it comes from. So when I talk about that we need to grow ourselves up, I don't mean to be talking down to anyone. I have literally had to grow myself up. I didn't receive adequate parenting. I didn't receive adequate validation, affirmation, reflection, mirroring, those words that mean that we were accurately reflected to ourselves by the adults around us. I wasn't. I wasn't given guidance. I had to sort a lot of things out at ages where one doesn't usually sort those things out by yourself. So I began to look at my life as if it were a map. And the areas where I felt comfortable, competent, and with capacity, those were clear to me. I was a grown-up in those areas. And there were a lot of other areas that I did not feel comfortable, competent, functional, with capacity. And so I began to really look at them and be aware of them rather than hiding my head in the sand, so to speak, and ignoring those areas. And I began to consciously grow myself up in all of those areas. So it's doable. We can grow ourselves up. Now, I did receive a lot of help along the way, and I continue to receive help. So I hope you support yourself in this journey. So you are on a spiritual path. You are growing in awareness, and you've got this. You're on your way. Thanks for joining me.